Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I want to call to order the regular City Council meeting for the City of Orange City for Tuesday, March 26, 2024. Kaylee, will you do roll call, please?
Here.
Councilmember Grimm?
Here.
Councilmember Marks?
Here.
Councilmember Jarvis? Here. Councilmember Capella?
Present.
Vice Mayor Johnson?
Here.
Mayor Blair?
Here. And the invocation tonight will be given by Associate Pastor Charles Prescott from the Grace Baptist Church.
Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for the privilege and the opportunity, Lord, and the honor this evening to pray over this council. And we pray that you give them wisdom, guidance, and direction as they seek to serve the citizens of this city, Orange City. And we want to thank you and honor you and praise you in the name of the Lord Jesus, for it's in his name we ask and pray. Amen. Amen.
Number one, absences. We have none at this time. Item number two, presentations and proclamations. Item A, the Good Citizenship Award presentation. Maddie, you,
Do you want to read the script
I'll be glad to.
first, and then council can join you for the plaque presentation and a photo as well?
Great. Excuse me. The Good Citizenship Award program was implemented in 2021 as a way to recognize people who go above and beyond for our community. The City Council recognizes that the strength of a community is dependent upon a strong network of citizens who devote time and effort to improve the quality of life by helping others. We are excited to present the 2024 First Quarter Good Citizenship Award to a very deserving individual this evening, Mrs. Sherry Fox. Sherry, yes. Sherry is a member of the Orange City community who has been described as selfless, kind, determined, thoughtful, and resourceful when it comes to helping the four-legged members of our community. She works to reunite lost and stray pets with their owners or rehome those who aren't as lucky. She's been known to work at all hours of the day and night, depending on the situation. Sherry has worked with our animal control officer, assisting her in lost pet calls, and even utilizes her own money for these animals' vet bills and food costs. Sherry is someone who recognized that every small act of kindness contributes to making a meaningful impact on the community. The City Council and I would like to present this certificate of appreciation to Sherry and to say thank you for all that you do for Orange City. So Sherry, please come on forward.
Good job, Sherry. Way to go. Way to go, Sherry.
All right.
Nice.
Here we go. Well done. Good job. Thank you.
Item 2B. Fiscal year 2023 audit presentation. And it'll be given by Tammy Campbell from McDermott Davis. Good to see you again, Tammy.
Present the results of the 2023 annual audit. The city received an unmodified audit opinion once again, and this is the best type of opinion that the city can receive. This year, the city had both federal and state single audits due to the SRF grant and loan activity. So that just involved some extra compliance testing, looking to make sure that the city complied, and the city did comply, and there were no issues with those grant funds. Looking at the general fund, although revenues and expenditures did decrease slightly from 2022, there was still an increase in fund balance of approximately $3 million. 2022 revenues were much higher than normal due to recognizing those ARPA funds, a one-time fund that the city received. The utilities fund had increases in both revenues and expenditures, resulting in an increase in net position of $2.7 million. The stormwater fund had a slight increase, but overall did not change significantly. Looking at the city as a whole, net position, overall the city has positive balances in all categories of net position, and assets do exceed liability, showing positive net position of the city. Looking at the general fund revenue and expense trends, we can see that revenues have been somewhat stable, and you can see that spike in 2022 for those grant revenues. And revenues are exceeding expenditures, which has allowed you to add to fund balance in the general fund. Looking at general fund revenues by source, ad valorem is your largest percentage at 40%, so those are your property taxes. Other taxes make up 15% of revenue, and intergovernmental, which includes some grant revenues, is about 15% of total revenues. Looking at expenditures by categories, public safety, your police and fire costs, are about 57% of general fund expenditures, and personnel costs make up 68% by type of expenditure. And again, that's very common for cities and governments to have breakdowns similar to this. The unassigned general fund balance decreased slightly compared to 2022. Part of this is due to the city assigning about $10 million for future capital projects. Those assigned fund balances are just internal city designations, so they can be modified if the council sees fit. So overall, still very healthy fund balance in the general fund, even with that slight decrease from 2022 to 2023. General fund liquidity or cash balance, we can see that steadily increasing, showing that the city does have those cash funds on hand for general fund expenditures. Looking at the utility fund, you can see those consistent increases in revenues and expenses, and the revenues are exceeding expenses, showing that those fees that are charged are enough to support that fund. Looking at revenues by source, charges for services are your main revenue source in the utility fund, with water charges making up 46% and wastewater 31%. And there was an increase in that percentage of wastewater as you've expanded that service within the city. Utilities fund expenses are similar to that of the general fund, where personnel makes up your largest category at 35%. And depreciation on capital assets is 24% of expenses, so that second largest category. Overall, we can see that net position of the utility fund is increasing. The largest category is the net investment in capital assets, so that's the value of the capital assets less any related debt. So that portion of net position isn't liquid, it represents your infrastructure and that investment. Looking at the stormwater revenues and expenses, there was some increase in 2023 compared to 2022, and that's some additional grant activity. The higher numbers in 2019 of revenues are a year that you had more grant activity within the stormwater fund. And looking at stormwater net position, that's been relatively consistent. So the charges have been roughly equal to expenditures. And again, you can see that the largest category of net position in the stormwater fund is that net investment in capital assets as well. Some summary, we looked at some internal control procedures in your processes, and there were no current or prior year management comments. So internal controls were operating effectively and efficiently. And as I mentioned, the city overall has stable fund balances set aside. And the city has limited debt. Most of it's in SRF loans, which are low or no interest loans. And if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. All right, thank you.
Make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2023 audit presentation.
I'll second.
Motion to a second. Any further discussion? Anyone from the public want to speak on this? Seeing none, Kelly?
Councilmember Capello?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tionson?
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford? Yes. Councilmember Grimm?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Jarms?
Yes.
Mayor Blair?
Yes, and we've accepted the fiscal year 2023 audit presentation. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, 2C, the Historic Preservation Board Annual Update Presentation. Is there anyone here from the Historic Preservation Board?
I'm very sad to say that they did not have a quorum at their last meeting, so we weren't sure whether or not they were going to be able to give this presentation. I would simply recommend that we continue it or take it off the agenda and put it back on when they are ready to give you your presentation.
Okay, so we don't need to take action. Do we?
Other than just a motion to table, motion to continue, tune on to a date to be determined.
Uncertain.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. Table this proceeding to a later date.
Got a motion, got a second? Kelly?
Vice Mayor Tionson?
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford?
Yes.
Councilmember Grimm?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Jarms?
Yes.
Councilmember Capello?
Yes.
Mayor Blair?
Yes, and the motion passes. Okay, item number 3, citizens' comments. Up first is Susie Pierce.
Good evening, council and mayor and manager and all of you here tonight. I brought my prop here.
Address
Oh,
for
I'm
the
sorry.
record, please.
Yes, Susie Peace, like peace sign. And yes, peace out. And actually, I'm from DeLand, but I'm just here to present an idea to all of you that you would possibly be interested in discussing at a future meeting, putting it on the agenda. And the city of DeLand recently created an ordinance to prohibit smoking and vaping in all of their city parks. And so I'm very proud of them, and I have some information to pass out to you. But thank you very much.
Okay, while she's doing that, the next speaker will be Jody Williams.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, and I'm going to back up Susie Peace as a local resident. I live at John Knox Village, 14B Azalea Drive. I've been here for 5.5 years, and I must say it is a pleasure. I'm an old New England town hall person from historic Lexington, Massachusetts, and it is good to see local government in action, friendly people, and I want to commend your city manager, Dale Arrington. She came this morning to John Knox Village to give an overview about the strategic planning for Orange City. I was at a doctor office most of the time, but I had wonderful input as to her information. I guess a lot of worry about traffic, but it's a nice partnership. I like. I've recently become aware. In the real old days, I worked for the State Department of Public Health in Massachusetts, and smoking we've done pretty well as a public health matter. I'm shocked and horrified as a person almost 80 years old with great-grandchildren that vaping. I don't know how much you all know about vaping. I'm seeing a couple of, if you don't know a lot, learn a lot. It is very scary. It is unregulated. So one of the few things I believe that local governments in Florida can still do on your own is ban via ordinance or whatever appropriate mechanism in our own parks of smoking and vaping. And as Susie Peace said, it's been done in D-Land. There's a wonderful youth movement in Florida, very impressive to try and get on top of these sort of very bad habit-forming, dangerous sorts of things. So just want to speak in favor again of this being placed appropriately on the agenda for next month, so discussions can take place. You can do whatever research. There's a lot of material available from advocacy groups and citizens and other governments. So pleasure to be here in this day and age and see local government working well. Thank you all.
Thank you. Ryan Elvis? Did I say your name right?
Good evening, everyone. One second. My name is Ryan Helms, and our company address is 128 Orange Avenue, Daytona Beach. I am the tobacco prevention or the community engagement manager with Civic Communications. We deal with the tobacco prevention grant in Volusia County, as well as there is a tobacco prevention grant in every single county across Florida. I just want to let you guys know if a policy were to be moved forward, we have the ability to purchase signage for you guys to put into all the parks. And also just let you guys know that a little bit of statistics, there is still 480,000 people dying in the U.S. every single year from tobacco use. In 2018, we had our statistics in Volusia County. Our youth were down to about 3% smoking. This current year, it is now up to about 20%, 1 in 5, because of the vaping epidemic. Just let that sink in. So this is what we can do, and if you guys choose to move forward with that, then that's the next best step. DeLand has already passed it, Port Orange has already passed it, Daytona Beach Shores and Edgewater have both passed it as well. So now tobacco-free Volusia has made their way to Orange City. Thank you.
All right, next, I don't know about this guy, Bill Crippen. Ooh, yeah.
I'll just say, there we go. I'll just say good evening, ladies and gentlemen, okay? I'm going to go way back and pick on somebody. I'm going to pick on the state legislature. I worked for the Department of Health and retired in 2003. And during when there was the tobacco settlement with the big tobacco companies, I can't remember the exact dollar amount that the state of Florida got. It was a bunch. It was to be spent for tobacco cessation education. It was so successful that after the first year, I believe, the figure was they reduced the starting smoking in the high schools by 50%. And the money was never supposed to be used for brick and mortar. Well, I don't know what happened, but somebody got to somebody, and they cut way back on the amount of money they were giving out for tobacco cessation, and they started building brick and mortar with it, some of those funds. That's wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Enough about that. As a former city councilman, a former smoker and a former vapor, I applaud, hopefully, the direction it's going to be taking to this to ban smoking and vaping in our public parks. I think it's something that needs to be done. I feel kind of odd coming from me saying that like I said, I smoked a pipe for many years and then I vaped and I was lucky. I was able to quit with very little issues about it. I'm glad I did. I almost lost my wife 2 years ago. I finally got her to quit smoking. She almost lost her life. So she's very much an anti-smoker now. So I thank you for that. When I was a member of the council, we used to do clean up Orange City. Oh my God, the cigarette butts. The one that I remember most prominently was right at the traffic light corner of Blue Spring and 1792. Must have been a 2 or 3 gallon bucket we picked up of cigarette butts. And I kept thinking, that's real close to our public parks. And I now also believe in the bad effects of secondhand smoke and the bad effects of vaping. We don't need to lose our future generations or the existing generations because of that. I was always trying to be courteous and stay downwind from people when I smoked in public. But now I'd rather see us not have it at all. So I hope you continue to do this good work. I'm going to drop this now. Sure enough. Put it up there. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Bill. Congratulations on quitting. Okay, anyone else like to address the council tonight? I have no more purple forms, so we will move on to the item number 4, the consent agenda.
Like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Got a second?
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Marks,
Yes.
Councilmember Jarnes,
Yes.
Councilmember Capello,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tionson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford, Mayor Clark.
Yes, and the consent agenda passes. Okay, moving on to item number 5, ordinances, first reading. 5A, ordinance number 677. Mr. Reichman, you read that one, please?
Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orange City, Florida, amending Chapter 10, Offenses Miscellaneous, Article 1, in general, Section 10.7, soliciting and solicitors of the Orange City Code of Ordinance by amending and repealing certain provisions relating to solicitation, providing for severability conflicts and for an effective date.
Okay, Bill.
Is this about panhandling? Yes, yes, I am. Thank you. I was just looking for my agenda item. And it's an ordinance that really has 2 different components to it. And it's not really an ordinance that I'm happy to bring to you because I know it will be controversial, but it is the right thing to do. We need to follow the rules of our land. And in August of this year, the United States District's Court enjoined the city of Daytona Beach in enforcing their panhandling ordinance. And that action followed many, many other actions that have happened not only in the state of Florida, but throughout the United States. Immediately upon that happening, I've got to admit I was caught a little off guard. I don't normally read court cases, but we went out to enforce one of our panhandling ordinance requirements. And it was immediately noted and put up on YouTube that we were doing something that the United States court system had deemed unconstitutional. That the right to panhandle was embedded in our First Amendment rights, and people had the right to go out and solicit funds, providing they were not breaking any other laws. So people can't bully you unnecessarily into giving them money. But they certainly have the right to stand on a street corner and say, hey, I'm homeless, I need money, to start, stop someone from panhandling in our city. We were overrun with emails. I have a very thick file folder full of them, in fact, a notebook full of them. And we spent days on the telephone talking to people about the effect of the United States court system. And I had to issue, with the help of our legal department, a notice that we would no longer be enforcing these sections of our codes, which had been deemed unconstitutional. So really, folks, you need to know that the ordinance that you are considering today has been in effect since October, the very beginning of October, because it simply repeals those sections of our ordinance that were deemed to be held unconstitutional by the United States court system. That's the first part of this. Since we don't do anything halfway around here, Haley and I got together with our legal department and we looked at the remainder of our solicitation ordinance. And we have updated those provisions to reflect what's currently happening in Orange City. Primarily as it deals with charitable groups sponsored by school systems or national organizations, and their requirement that they go to our local clerk's office and pull a special permit for conducting their sales. I want to say in the 8 years now that I have been working here, we've issued one of those. I'm very proud to say that the University High School band has always followed the rules. But that has been it, folks. So, you know, most schools now, most charitable groups, such as the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts, they don't go door to door. They set up at a local shopping center to solicit, or they go to our events and sell their goods and wares. If they do decide to do door to door, the provisions of the ordinance are that they carry their ID and their credentials from their charitable organization with them, so we're covered. So those are the requirements in a nutshell. We are asking that you adopt this ordinance on first reading and schedule second reading for your next meeting.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Anyone from the public like to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance number 677 on first reading and schedule April 9th, 2024 for the second and final reading.
Got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion? Kaylee?
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Jarnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Capello?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford?
Yes.
Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Mayor Blair?
Yes, and ordinance number 677 passes. Item 5B, ordinance number 678. Mr. Reichman, you read that one, please? Of course, Mr. Mayor.
So the City Council of the City employment and amending section 1.162 process, section 3.8 introductory period, section 313 hours of work and overtime, section 4.4 on call, section 5.1 information systems, section 6.2 holidays, and section 6.3 bereavement leave of the City of Orange City. These are of the personnel policies and procedures manual, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with, providing for severability and for an effective date.
Jeremy Wiggins.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Jeremy Wiggins, Human Resources and Risk Management Administrator. Just as Mr. Reichman read in that ordinance title, we are looking to make some revisions to the current personnel policies and procedures manual through ordinance, with the first reading taking place tonight. Our personnel policies and procedures manual was established in May 26th of 1992, so it's been around for quite some time that we've had it. But a personnel policies and procedures manual is a living document and periodically does need to be updated to make sure that we are following all current labor laws, best practices and trends of the human resources profession, as well as management and local government as well. I last came before you to amend the Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual on January 10th of 2023. That revision came in effect, and over the past year, as we've worked with that manual, we've noted some places where we could strengthen that manual to make it a better document. So we're not coming forward to you today with any sweeping changes, but rather just a few editorial changes for the most part, and one new policy as well to aid us in recruitment and retention. But the Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual does cover all city employees, whether they are full-time, part-time, or temporary employees. The only individuals that it does not cover would be our elected and appointed individuals, which would be those of you all sitting at the dais and the various other seats up front with you, but all other employees are bound by this contract. So to jump right into the changes, our first two, and I've kind of gone out of order of what was in the ordinance just to kind of group like items together rather than just going numerically through here. So first we have section 1.16, due process. There's no functional change to this policy. For those of you who may have been employed as a public employee through another agency, Councilmember Papello, Mayor Blair, I both know working for your organizations, your public employees, you may be aware of that. All public employees are enshrined with what is known as property rights within the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, to jump a few from the First Amendment that City Manager Arrington was talking about earlier. But within that, once an employee has cleared their introductory period, unless they have waived those rights by signing a contract, public employees have property rights to their position, and that position cannot be taken away without due process. This is very different than might be in the private sector, in which no notice is required to remove a position. But that is enshrined for all of our employees. What we found after revising this policy back in 2022 when we added 1.16 to the policy manual is, well, it's enshrined in the Constitution that you don't gain property rights until you've cleared introductory period. Not everybody was familiar with that, and so we're simply adding language to 1.16 to notify our introductory employees that they will not gain those property rights until they've cleared the introductory period. So it's not a change from current practice. It's just an attempt to make our policies as transparent as possible to our employees. So that jumps us to 3.8 on our introductory period, as we've been talking about. So there's two component changes to 3.8, and that is one, to echo the editorial changes of 1.16 to continue to make the terms of the introductory period as spelled out and clear as possible. The second portion of this is really just some editorial language. Back in 2023, with some of the changes we made at that time, one change that we made was for the final level of approval needed for the termination or discipline of an employee to be the department director. Prior to that had been the city manager. We simply missed a section in the policy where we amended that, and so in 3.8 there's a section where we changed the word city manager to department director to echo the intent of the changes that we made at a previous time. And of course, we still have all of our departments running any major disciplinary action going through human resources to ensure that we're consistent across the city and not making independent actions on silos there. The next policy that we have changes in there is 3.12. That is our new policy that we're proposing here in our amendments, and this is a section that we're calling reemployment. Resignations and separations from employment are a natural and healthy part of any employment cycle. Having a 0% turnover for a year is actually considered unhealthy. You do want to see some growth that shows that your employees are learning and growing, and sometimes you're going to lose people to opportunities outside the organization if that next step in their career isn't here. We always hate to see those people go, but the saying that we go by is you want to train your employees so that they can leave and treat them so they can stay. But unfortunately, sometimes you're looking for a growth opportunity we don't have. And so we wish them well, but would always be happy to see them come back. And oftentimes you hear the saying, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. We have encountered times where employees have left and come back to us very quickly and said, you know, maybe I shouldn't have gone in the first place. And so we're trying to encourage those employees who are on the fence to maybe come back. What this policy would do is, if 4 prongs are met, it would allow us to pick that employee back up and restore their tenure and service credit to try and encourage people to come back when the grass wasn't always greener. We've had some success with this over the years, one of which I know you'll be hearing from on the next agenda item. Those 4 prongs for this item would be the introductory period was completed by the employee. So they cleared their introduction. They separated voluntarily and left the city in good standing is our second prong. Our third prong is that they provided appropriate notice. So they gave us either 2 weeks or 4 weeks if they're a management employee as dictated by policy. And the fourth and final prong is that they're rehired no more than 180 days after their separation of employment, which is a 6-month period of time. So these are the prongs that we're looking. We're hopeful that, as we do lose employees, if we're able to bring some folks back with this, that's to the city's benefit to bring back that organizational, institutional knowledge. Then we jump into 1.13, hours of work and overtime. City Council, if you recall, during our most recent fire union contract negotiation and going back 4 years to 2 police union contract negotiations, we have granted both of our unions a benefit that we call scheduled PTO, in which if they provide us 14 days notice that they plan to take time off away from work, we will count that paid time off towards hours worked for the calculation of overtime. What we're looking to do with this change to the policy is we're looking to pass that benefit on to all city employees. It's already in place in our unions. We'd like to make it available for our general rank and file employees who are non-unionized as well. In reality, this only affects our hourly or not exempt employees, as exempt or salaried employees aren't overtime eligible. So it's not an impact there. Generally what you see across the board, if an employee takes Monday off, let's say, and then works a shift on Saturday, rather than taking that PTO on Monday, they flex their time out so that they're not using their time off if they're picking hours up in the same shift. That's fairly normal in all non-shift work entities. Parks and Recreation, for example, we have many employees at our 4th of July event that do just that, is they know they're going to be working long hours on that Saturday when we have our firework event, so they'll take a day off earlier in the week to kind of rest up and be ready, and really there's no overtime implication this creates. Where this will have an impact is with our battalion chiefs who are on shift work. They're working that 24 hours on, 48 hours off, along with our firefighters and lieutenants. And anytime any of our shift employees in police or fire take a shift off because we have minimum staffing and we have to fill it, they do have to use the time off for that. So this benefit that we're offering through this policy really only impacts our 3 battalion chiefs. It has a fairly minimal cost based on our analysis financially, but as their firefighters and their fire lieutenants are receiving it, we wanted to make sure they were receiving the same benefit as well. 6.2 with holidays is much the same. We are looking to add language so that any employees who are on a 56-hour weekly shift, again, that's going to be our firefighters on shift. So those firefighters and lieutenants already have this benefit through the fire union. We're looking to add it in for our battalion chiefs. It would increase the holiday hours they receive from 8 to 12 hours, just as that straight time pay that they'd receive on that day. There'd be no change for 40-hour employees or 42-hour per week employees as well. In policy 4.4, we have our on-call policy. So with a lot of the work we do here at the city, while we all go home at 5 o'clock, we do have to have somebody on standby in case something goes wrong, whether it's utilities in case we have a line break or somebody in parks in case we find out the bathroom was left unlocked and someone needs to come and close that up for safety and security reasons. Somebody is always holding an on-call phone in many of our departments. While they hold that phone, they receive 1 hour of straight time for every day, whether they get called or not. Then we have what we call reporting call-outs. So if I'm holding that on-call phone, it rings and I pick it up and I need to come in person to address a concern, I receive a minimum of 2-hour pay to deal with that, which is a great benefit to those employees as we're breaking them away from their rest and relaxation time so they come back to work the next day. So even if it only takes them 20 minutes to fix a light bulb, they're going to get that 2-hour minimum for us taking them away from their family in the evening. What we found though in practice is a little bit of what we felt was an oversight in the intent in this policy. So in utilities, this happens a lot where there'll be a line break or there'll be something going on and the on-call reporting employee comes out to try and fix it, but they need to call in some backup. They can't handle that alone. And so they call out the second employee and together they've resolved this in an hour. So the guy who is on call gets a 2-hour minimum pay, but we didn't have any language to address that employee, so the second employee coming out was only receiving 1 hour. He was just as disrupted and perhaps more disrupted because he wasn't prepared to be on call. So we're seeking only to add language to this policy so that any secondary employee who's called out to respond to an on-call incident, whether they were on call or not, also receives that 2-hour minimum for coming out. Excuse me. In 6.3, we address bereavement leave. The city has provided bereavement leave for some time to our employees. However, we never put a time frame guidance on it. We haven't really had anybody looking to extend bereavement leave for too long, but we're just looking to make sure we define some parameters. There are circumstances where when someone has to use bereavement leave, unfortunately, the funeral, everything takes place within a very short amount of time, and they're taking that leave. However, we've encountered some very legitimate reasons over time. In the dead of winter, a family member being buried in upstate New York. The ground's frozen, you can't dig, so they have to delay the funeral, so the employees need to delay bereavement leave. Or attend service in Puerto Rico. We've had that come up. I once, it wasn't here, but another employment had an employee whose father's wishes was to have his ashes spread at the Grand Canyon. And the only time he could get with his 3 brothers to go spread that was 4 months away. And we felt all of these are legitimate reasons. And so if an employee has a legitimate reason, we're simply adding language to say, hey, within 6 months of the passing, we'll grant the bereavement leave, just so we have some time frame and parameters established in there. The final change that we have is to 5.1 information systems, and this again is just an editorial change. Our IT department, since its creation many years ago, has been in charge of all of our cybersecurity, all of our procedures and guidelines pertaining to electronic use. We can't get away from them as we go through it. And as anybody who works with technology knows, technology is far too volatile to write a policy, because by the time we've written it, vetted it, and put it out, it's changed already. So to attempt to put it in a policy manual when we have to do 2 ordinance readings to update that doesn't really make us very agile. So IT works off of operating procedures and guidelines, and they have a computing policies procedures manual which they have drafted and can update as they need to. And simply all we're looking to do with this policy is notify employees that in addition to what's written in the manual, which is our most basic and broad versions of IT security, IT also may have some other expectations for how you interact with our systems, and employees are expected to abide by those expectations. And that's all we're seeking to do here. So those are our 8 changes that we're recommending to our policy. I'll entertain any questions, but our recommendation is to approve Ordinance 678 on first reading tonight.
I've got a question on call. So each day that they're on call, they get 1 hour.
Yes.
They get called or not.
1 hour of straight time, yes.
So if they get called, then they get 2 additional hours minimum.
Yes, sir.
So that would be 3 hours.
Yes, sir. The 1 hour of straight time that they receive to hold the phone is paid at their base hourly rate. It's not an hour worked. It's simply the way we calculate that incentive to be on call. When they report, because they've already or will likely work their 40 hours for the standard week, those 2 hours they receive when they report will be at an overtime rate, so to speak, because it will exceed their 40 hours and reach that overtime threshold.
On the comment that, I like the reemployment part that you did, because the incentive to bring people back,
Right.
the good people that we've lost, right? And then the bereavement, I really like that, because you're right, there's so many different instances of different families of things that happen.
Right.
So I think that's awesome. And then the last thing you said, I just thank you for all the work that you did on this. It's really good.
Mr. Johnson has a question.
Yeah, when someone, one of our employees leave at their own will, you get an exit email?
We do an exit interview with all employees who leave. I do that myself. And then based on the comments, if there's anything that, is of interest, I'll share that with the departments to let them know. Usually because of the culture that our department directors have created in their departments, we usually don't find anything too shocking or interesting in those evaluations. It's information that's already known. We're usually fortunate in that regard, but on the occasion that something does come up, we make sure we share and address it to try and eliminate that problem for any future employees, if it was a problem, in fact.
And if we're taking them back within 180 days, that's an objective decision. We don't have to do it. We can't.
No, that would be, say, an employee left our municipality to go work in the water department for another municipality, but realized that they don't have as great of a water department as Robert has for his gentleman, and so they say, hey, you got another opening, I'd like to come back. And so it would simply be they voluntarily left and came back. If we were to release the employee from employment, they would not be subject to that policy. We likely wouldn't be looking to bring them back either, I would imagine.
So if we replace an employee and there's no position open, we're not bound to.
There would be no opportunity to utilize it, but it would be if they left, we filled it, and then say another employee left within that time frame in that classification or another classification.
Anyone else have any questions? Anyone from the public want to speak on this?
6 months coming
No,
back.
love to speak at the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Karen Stuckey.
6 months coming back is not really a long time. I mean, a good employee, you might want to reconsider on that.
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 678 on first reading.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? Any further discussion? Kelly?
Just confirm we're scheduling second and final for April.
So moved.
Councilmember Jarvis?
Yes.
Councilmember Capello?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tiongson?
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford?
Yes.
Councilmember Grimm?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Mayor Burke?
Yes, and ordinance 678 passes. Let's move on to item number 6, public hearing / ordinances, second and final reading. 6A, PUD-08-23-33-81, ordinance number 676. Mr. Reichman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orange City, Florida, amending the official zoning map for approximately 9.02 acres located at 425 Veterans Memorial Parkway, rezoning certain property from LBB Medical Planned Unit Development, or PUD, zoning classification to Able Trim and Door Plan Unit Development, PUD, zoning classification, and approving the master development plan. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability and providing for an effective date. Mr. Mayor, Council, this is the second reading of a quasi-judicial matter. For the record, I want to make sure that we announce that there has been an email that was received by the city clerk today from a Troy Cox, and that we've made part of the record. In addition, if there have been any ex parte communications to you since the first reading, those should be disclosed at this time. Okay, thank you.
All right, Joe Ruiz.
Mayor, City Council, respected members of the public, Joe Ruiz, Deputy Development Services Director. As mentioned by our city attorney, this is an application for a rezone for Able Trim and Door Plan Unit Development, to be located at 425. Is that better? To be located at 425 Veterans Memorial Parkway. And as Jeremy announced, I am happy to say that I am one of those employees that came back to the city. Came back to my senses.
Glad you did.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So the site profile, site information, the parcel located at 425 Veterans Memorial Parkway is 9.02 acres. It was annexed back in 2002. Was mentioned in the ordinance, the zoning of that property is LBB, Medical Center PUD. Back in 2008, there was an application to rezone that property to that zoning district to allow for a PUD for up to 60,000 square feet of medical uses. And looking at the year that it was submitted and understanding the real estate crisis that occurred after that, you can probably imagine that nothing came of that due to the real estate market. So the future land use of the parcel is MX, future land use, mixed use, and the property is located within the city utility service area as well. So the applicant has proposed ordinance 676 to update the zoning and amend the zoning map to allow for the Able Trim and Door PUD, which is for a 103,364 square foot manufacturing facility. As was discussed at the first hearing, everything is intended to be indoors. They are located currently off of Shattuck Drive. They've outgrown their facilities and looking for somewhere to expand. And as every good city would want, their local businesses to stay within the city as well as expand. So it'll be for manufacturing, office, material storage, shipping and receiving, and showroom use. The building is a two-story building with a one-story step down to the west, adjacent to the rural estate lots to the west there on Pineland Court. The proposal provides for two full driveway accesses along Veterans Memorial Parkway. You will see in the concurrency level review that we did, it did not trip the threshold for a traffic impact analysis based on the number of trips. However, there still are improvements that the applicant is going to have to do to accommodate their use. So the county has reviewed this as well as our consultant and staff. And so what came of the review was two full driveway accesses as well as turn lanes into the property, southbound turn lanes. And then there is also a westbound or northbound turn lane into the site along Veterans Memorial Parkway at the southern access. The applicant will also be doing some median striping to accommodate for these new lanes, new turn lanes into the site. Water and sewer service is available. The closest is at Monastery to the south. And reclaim is not currently available. However, the applicant is proposing within the development agreement to extend a reclaim line, what is known as a dry line, which will go up into the property so that when it is available, they can plug in and connect to our reclaim system. So here you can see the proposed master development plan. So to the north here, the applicant is providing currently a 50-foot setback based on the concept of where the building would go. To the west, there's also about a 50-foot setback. Within the development agreement, the setbacks are shown actually as 35 feet, and what that does is it preserves the buffer that they're providing, as well as allows for any expansion that they would have to do in the future if they were to have to expand their building. Along Veterans Memorial Parkway, that setback that they're proposing is approximately about 76 feet. And then to the south of the property would be their retention area as well as tree preservation area. So when reviewing these amendments to the zoning map as well as plan unit developments, we review them to make sure that there's comp plan consistency. It's kind of our guiding document, and then our land development code falls within that, and our zonings as well. So it is a mixed-use designation, which does allow light industrial uses. The proposed 103,000 square foot building is well under the maximum floor area ratio allowed. Hypothetically, the applicant could have came in with a 196,000 square foot facility. The additional industrial square footage increases the development mix from 36% to 37%, which complies with Table 2-2 within our future land use element. And so what that table does, essentially, it says within our mixed-use areas, these are the parameters that have to be met. We have a minimum percentage per uses as well as a maximum percentage to allow for that healthy mixed use within our future land use designations as well as our zoning districts. The applicant within their project provides buffers, separation, and building height step down to the west, to the abutting low-density residential, as well as the Land O'Lakes to the north and Certus ALF PUD to the southwest. And as you all heard, there was a letter of support from Certus that was provided to you all and to staff. So just to kind of give a line of sight comparison to the adjacent properties and what this property is going to, what the effect this property is going to have. So as far as land use compatibility, what you see here on the north side, adjacent to Land O'Lakes, they've provided a cross section as well as what that line of sight would be. So Land O'Lakes would be looking essentially at the 35-foot buffer that they're proposing to maintain. Important to note, the applicant also is providing a 20-foot buffer, or I'm sorry, 20-foot easement along the north side there. In surveying the property and in staff reviewing the project, it looks like Land O'Lakes in the past has constructed some or installed some stormwater conveyances onto this property. And so the applicant has worked with staff on providing an easement in the event that those stormwater conveyances need to be addressed in the future by Land O'Lakes or the city per se. That is there for access in the event. So on Pineland Court as well, based on where the building is going to be located, anticipated, there is a 242-foot separation from the closest home on the west side there along Pineland Court. So you can see that these setbacks as well as these buffers provide a good safeguard between the existing uses and the anticipated use by the applicant. It's important also to note within the language of the development agreement, it does not, it essentially with the approval establishes that it does not have to come back to the city council for site plan review. And just in noting that language also encompasses what would be the latest ordinance 671 approved last year, which required the 35-foot buffer as well as some screening. And so the applicant has provided for those 35-foot landscape buffers, and to not kind of cut at or disturb that 35-foot landscape buffer, they're not proposing any screening at this time. The applicant has worked with staff, although to make sure that based on truck traffic and trucks coming into the site, that if there were to become a problem with noise and things like that, that they would install proper measures to mitigate that if it were to become a problem. So here are some of the elevations that the applicant has proposed to staff, and these both would be angles looking from Veterans Memorial Parkway. So in the PUD review analysis, there are items that we look at based on the criteria. Comp plan consistency, as we've gone over, proposed plan complies with the standards of the MX future land use designation. As far as land use compatibility, the standards detailed in the PUD development order and development agreement, the plan is compatible with adjacent land uses. As far as public interest and economic impacts, the Able Trim and Door is currently a local employer, as was mentioned, along Shattuck. The rezoning will allow them to expand their business operations and stay in Orange City, further creating more jobs within our city. As far as the environmental impacts, on the site, there are no wetlands, no flood zone, or no known historic trees on site. The applicant did provide a tree survey, which staff reviewed, noting that there's approximately 60 specimen trees on site. Currently, there's no environmental analysis. However, with the site plan, that will be a requirement. Part of that is because the environmental analysis, depending on how long the rezonings take, can expire and have to be re-upped anyway. So staff will be looking for that with the site plan application. And then also, the applicant currently, within the DA, is proposing 30% tree preservation provided and is required by our code. As far as concurrency and utilities, the development is anticipated to generate 499 average daily trips, which is under the TPO threshold for 1,000 average daily trips, and under the 100 PM peak hour trips threshold as well. So it is considered a de minimis traffic generation. The applicant is, however, required to install the proper turn lanes and the accesses as noted on the plan. The city utility capacity is available to serve this development, and as staff gets into the site plan application, further will develop with their connections and necessary infrastructure. As far as the value and public welfare, the DA provides language to ensure the public health, welfare, safety, and morals are kept with buffering and potential noise mitigation measures, as was noted within the language in the DA. As far as the review and approval process, the TRC did approve on December 19th, or recommended approval to the Planning Commission and City Council. The Planning Commission did recommend that the City Council approve the ordinance on February 8th at a special Planning Commission meeting. And also, the City Council on March 12th did approve Ordinance 676 at first hearing. So today, staff recommends that the City Council find the rezoning consistent with the comprehensive plan and adopt the ordinance at second and final reading. Thank you, Mayor, and any questions, I'm here available.
Public, well, let's, the applicant, would you like to say anything? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Denise Klein with Able Trim and Door, and I live at 309 Birchington Drive in DeBary, Florida. I'm not sure too much of anything else I can tell you guys because we've been over this a few times, but if anybody has any other questions that may have come up, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yes, ma'am. I don't have any questions, but I did mention this at the last meeting. I live around the corner from that, and I feel very positive about this because I go up and down that street, and they are definitely busy, but they never hold anything up. I've never heard anything. The street is in great condition. So being in that position in that location, I have no quandaries about them going there. And I see you growing, so you're going to even be growing better over there. I like that.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think they'll be great corporate neighbors.
Yes.
Well, we're excited about it. Our whole team is very excited about it, and they have pictures of those drawings all over the whole warehouse everywhere. Yeah, they like to remind themselves about it. So, but yeah, this is a huge project for us. This is definitely the biggest building we've ever been in, and hopefully the last. I hope to never have it again. But I really appreciate the positivity and everybody's support in this. Thank you very much.
How long have you been in business?
Just over 15 years. November was 15.
That's a big growth. Yes. Amazing. So I want to
a
congratulate.
tiny building and industrial for 9 years before we moved to Shattuck and expanded out 3 buildings wide. So, yes. Thank you, guys.
All right, anyone from the public like to speak? Come on up, state your name for the, while she's coming up here, is Denise Klein? That is her. Oh, that was you. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no, this was, okay, I'll read this end of the, something else, yeah. All right.
My name is Dana Knight. I live at 1555 North Silverstone Court, which is right off of Monastery, around the corner. If you approve this and they build that plan, we are already seeing a significant amount of extra traffic coming down Monastery between Graves and Veterans Memorial. A lot of speeding. I've almost been hit 3 times. What are we going to do to curb that? Because it's going to create more traffic down Monastery between Graves and Veterans Memorial. Are we going to put in some speed bumps? Are we going to do something to help slow that traffic down?
Well, Chief is sitting right behind you there. I'm sure you heard what you had to say. And I know we put our flashing signs out there.
And officers have been out there as well.
Yeah, they have been. They've caught a few people, but I mean, they can't stay out there all the time. And people we've got a small neighborhood right there. People like to walk, and we've only got a sidewalk right there at the John Knox facility. So we're walking on the road. People top that hill. I've seen them almost hit the kids that live right there. They've almost hit me. I had one lady stop, back up, and start cussing me out because I'm walking down my street. So this concerns me that we're going to have even more traffic cut down Graves.
Well, this building is out on Veterans, so
Right.
they really don't have any business being on Monastery.
Well, they don't, but I'm saying like employees and stuff,
Right.
instead of going back down to Graves, people come through and they cut through to avoid the light.
Oh, I come through there all the time going to Home Depot myself.
If I see you speeding, Mayor, it's on, buddy.
It's hard to go 25 miles an hour down there.
I could be wrong, because I live around the corner from them. I don't see any heavy-duty traffic right now. And it's gonna be during probably 9 to 5 hours. But I don't see that, and I live right by where they are now. And yeah, they're gonna be in a larger area and all of that, but I don't think it's the kind of business that we're gonna have to worry about. There's gonna be 24/7 in and out.
Yeah, I'm just worried about how it's going to increase traffic down, people cutting through. Because we do have a lot of traffic that does cut through certain times of the day, especially in the evenings when people are trying to walk. So it's a concern. It's been a concern of our neighborhoods for quite a while. And like I said, our great police have been out there trying to stop traffic, but even if you put up a flashing sign, people look at it like, and they keep going. So, I mean, I just want to say that's a concern of mine.
We'll keep an eye on it, I'm sure, and I'm sure the chief heard you. We'll hopefully let him catch me out of there.
Because I don't want to get arrested if somebody backs up on me and starts cussing me again. I'm just saying.
That's just not right. You're Bonnie, right?
Dana.
Oh, Dana, okay. All right. Thank you very much. Bonnie, Carey?
Hi, I'm Bonnie Carey, and I live at 660 Bonnie Lane. And my driveway is right across the street from, I guess, the showroom, which will be on Veterans Memorial. I missed your previous 2 meetings, so I guess it's kind of a done deal, but I would like to say my piece if I could. We came here 40 years ago and bought our land. We have 2.5 acres, and it was out in the woods at the time. And I'm sure you hear this a lot. Developments coming everywhere, and it's especially coming up Veterans Memorial Boulevard. There's the new subdivision that's going in at the corner of Graves and Veterans. This was zoned for medical use, medical facility, and that seems to fit better with John Knox Village, Monastery Oaks, the business part of John Knox Village, and the assisted living facility, which I guess will be right next to this property. So that seems to fit better with what is going on around it, which is residential. I don't see how we can interject industrial use in that area. It just doesn't fit. So, I don't know. My driveway's right across the street. There's a piece of property that's between my property and Veterans Memorial. I am back off the road, but my driveway is directly across the street from where this facility will be built. This worries me because I don't know what y'all are going to approve for that little piece of property that's between me and the road. It seems like it's open season, industrial, racetrack, gas station, whatever, I don't know. Are there stipulations within mixed use that you do fine tune it a little bit to go with the area? Or does mixed use mean anything?
Well, we're not, if you need answers to those specific questions, you can get with Development Services or the city manager tomorrow, and they can be more specific with you on your particular property. It's hard for us up here to say, oh, we can do this or that, because we don't really know.
Right.
That's-
But obviously, you can change it from medical to industrial, so there seems to be a lot of sway in what mixed use is. Can I make a comment real quick?
I don't know if this is going to help or not, but if you've seen the rendering of the picture of their business that's coming up, it kind of fits with Certus and all that. It looks like that from the front, so it doesn't look like industrial kind of use, if you will. I'm assuming that they're probably going to do, the showroom's at the front, so it's more like a more commercial-looking building, but at least it kind of fits with the rendering of the other buildings in that area versus their work is probably, I'm guessing, going to be out back or something where you can't see the industrial part of it. I've been to their place now, and it seems like they keep everything inside mostly, so they're putting doors together and things. They're not actually... yeah, you know what I mean? So I don't know if that helps any, but...
I can't really see that. I need to go there and look at it closely.
Oh, no, there's
Are there
another
two
slide.
entrances only?
Look at this
Yes.
picture, we'll show you.
There are two entrances only on Veterans Memorial?
Correct.
Past it.
They're showing an entrance right here on the north side, and an entrance here on the south side.
Go to that picture.
So all the trucks and manufacturing stuff goes out in those two entrances? There's
Correct.
nothing in the back?
Correct, nothing in the back. So part of what was noted in the staff report, what is very beneficial about this site is that their accesses will be limited to Veterans Memorial. So although it does abut Pineland Court, that will not be opened up. That'll be part of their buffer along the western portion here. And then to the north, they're buffered from Land O'Lakes. And then that is those are the architectural elevations for them that they're proposing currently.
That's the Veterans Memorial
Yep,
view?
that'll be
view?
along, yep, the view off of Veterans Memorial Park.
A little better than a warehouse, if you will, you know? I don't know if that makes you feel better, but...
Okay. I still would, well, I'll speak to, do you still have a planner?
Yes.
You're the planner? Oh, you're the planner?
I'm one of them, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I remember the other girl.
Oh, Becky, yeah.
Yes,
Becky.
Becky.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's currently on.
Okay. All right, I'll speak to the planner.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanna, to what you're speaking of, we got an email addressed to our city clerk, but directed to all of us by the co-founder of Certus Senior Living, which is, I guess they've got their facilities right by there, and they'll overwhelmingly approve of this project from what they've seen. They don't see it as adding any traffic, any more traffic, and that they understand is going to add a little bit more jobs. So the co-founder himself and the rest of the staff sort of approves what they're doing. Just to let you know, from everybody, they should be the ones that say, "Hey, look, we don't approve this. We'd like for it to be medical," but they approved it. Thank you.
Alex, since you jumped on it, why don't you go ahead and read that letter to the record?
Surely will. Since it got printed before us by our city clerk. It says, this is from the Certus Senior Living managing member and co-founder. Gentlemen, may concern, I am writing today to support planned unit development sponsored by the Klein Corporation Incorporated. For the planned unit development, of the Able Trim and Door Industrial Building to be located in the north side of Veterans Memorial Parkway. I am one of the owners and co-founder of Certus Senior Living, located adjacent to the proposed development at 675 Veterans Memorial Parkway, Orange City. At Certus, I'm saying that right? Certus? At Certus, we provide housing for those who sometimes can't remember, people living with dementia in its many different forms, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, Parkinson's, and etc. Who and what our neighbors do is important is important to caring for our residents and providing the best immersive, independent daily life experience. I have spoken to Denise Klein, the owner and developer, and have received the plans and their operations. It seems like Able Trim and Door will create jobs, make their operation more efficient, and carefully and thoughtfully designed in an aesthetically pleasing way to their regard. We hope that you will approve their current plan as presented, and we look forward to having them as our neighbor. That's the co-founder.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the public want to speak to this? If not, I'm going to close the public portion of this.
If I may, Mayor, Council, it's important to note that for a 100,000 square foot facility to only produce or be anticipated to produce 499 average daily trips in comparison to what the property previously was anticipated for, likely is a big reduction in what the, for example, PM peak hour trips and average daily trips of a medical facility would have been. So it's just important to note that. Yeah.
Okay, so no one else in public, bring it back to the council for action.
Make a motion to find the amendment to the official zoning map consistent with the comprehensive plan and adopt ordinance number 676 at second and final reading.
Motion? Second. Second. Okay, Bailey?
Councilmember Pello?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Skeleton?
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford?
Yes.
Councilmember Grimm?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Darn?
Yes.
Mayor Blair?
Yes, and ordinance 676 passes on the second and final reading. Let's move on to item number 7, resolutions. Resolution number 308-24. Mr. Reichman, will you read that one, please?
The City Council of the City of Orange City, Florida, vacating 2 unimproved 50-foot wide platted rights-of-way known as Oak Lane and Palmetto Drive within the Forest Park Hills Plat, Map Book 23, page 152, both located east of South Kentucky Avenue and west of State Road 400 or Interstate 4, repealing all resolutions or parts of resolutions in conflict herewith, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Joe Ruiz is presenting again.
Council. So this is a right-of-way vacation application for Oak Lane and Palmetto Drive. So this application actually is a city-initiated application. It is an initiative that you all have approved as far as the water supply plan, which we'll get into details with. And so, like any municipality and any good laws, there are checks and balances within municipalities themselves to be able to apply and go through the due process as necessary for things such as this. So this application is to vacate unimproved right-of-ways known as Oak Lane and Palmetto Drive in accordance with Florida Statutes Chapter 177, 101, and Section 16.4 of our own Land Development Code. These right-of-ways are part of the Forest Hill Parks plat. The plat is an antiquated subdivision, essentially platted back in 1956, which has not been developed at this time as was anticipated back in 56. It is located to the east of South Kentucky Avenue and west of I-4, as well as south of Country Village. The vacation will facilitate the expansion and the buffering of the city's existing utility systems. And also the city has done and taken on significant land acquisition efforts to implement the integrated water supply plan. If there are any questions regarding that plan here today in more detail, as I am not a utility specialist, Robert Lawler is here as our utilities director to field any questions. So just some background, resolution number 270-23 was approved for the city water supply plan. So the city contracted with a consultant plumber to design an integrated water supply plan to, one, meet future water demands, to comply with minimum flows and levels adopted for Blue Springs, meet drinking water supply with existing and future supply sources, and also to continue to serve existing and future irrigation users within our city. So as you can see here on this plan, that is essentially the conceptual master plan that was brought before you all for this area to be able to build it out and establish wells and necessary facilities for our utilities. So just to kind of go into some of the land acquisition efforts that the city has taken on. So per that approval of the integrated water supply plan, city has pursued these land acquisition efforts. So the city has essentially acquired approximately 5 acres worth of land. As you can see here, Palmetto is on the northern side here, and Oak is on is below that there. And so the city has gone acquiring from different landowners to be able to consolidate this area. And one of the missing pieces here is to vacate these right-of-ways to be able to just consolidate and combine those land areas there so that it's more buffered and we have a more complete site to be able to develop. So with the right-of-way vacation, there is a review, although it is a city application, that we have to do. Based on Chapter 16 of our Land Development Code, Section 16.6 establishes that there has to be an overriding public purpose and benefit that's clearly demonstrated with this application. As mentioned, the Integrated Water Supply Plan has been approved by the body here, and essentially the city has taken that on to continue those efforts to improve our utility system. So currently, the city owns all property adjacent to the right-of-ways, so we wouldn't be cutting off any access from anyone. We do own the properties adjacent, and so what will happen is with that vacation, it'll become part of essentially the lots that we own to the north and the south of those right-of-ways. The city also has obtained non-objection letters from all utility providers within there. So with every plat, every subdivision, every right-of-way, there are entitlements and rights for easement rights given to utility companies. So Robert has gone and requested that they submit non-objection letters, which staff has received. We've reviewed to make sure that check the box and there's no conflicts there. And as mentioned, as far as that supply plan, water supply plan is necessary for expansion and buffering of the city's public utility system for water demands, Blue Springs Basin requirements, drinking water standards, as well as serving our existing and future irrigation users. So at this time, staff does recommend that the City Council approve resolution number 308-24 before you all today.
Any questions? Comments? Anyone from the public want to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for action.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we accept resolution number 308-24.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? Further discussion? Bailey?
Vice Mayor Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford?
Yes.
Councilmember Grimm?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Jarnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Capello?
Yes.
Mayor Blair?
Yes, resolution number 308-24 passes.
you.
Let's move on to 8, discussion and action. 8A, approve the contract award for Q187-0-2023/TRS. Architectural Engineering Services for Public Facilities Enhancements Project 2, JL2 Architecture, LLC. Christine Davis, this is your baby.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Christine Davis, Assistant City Manager. The subject of, I'm sorry to repeat, approved contract award for architecture and engineering services for our public facility enhancements projects with JL2 Architecture. In keeping with the city's adopted strategic plan, the design and contract or construction for these for 3 buildings is a highest priority objective. Those 3 buildings are the Fire Station number 68, the Police Department, and Public Works. As part of the process, the city went out some time ago and broadcast requesting bids or proposals for the architectural and engineering and design of the 3 buildings. On November 14th, council approved the ranking and authorized staff to negotiate. The negotiation team assembled and met with Johnny Lorem, Am I saying that right, Johnny? Maybe. He is the president of JL2. He's in the audience, if you could say hello. So the Florida Department of Management Services cost curve for professional service was utilized to develop a baseline fee. The proposed contracts meet that baseline. The contracts for services will take us all the way through the 5 phases. What's being proposed and funded at this time are the first 2 phases that will get us through to the 30% design. You may recall that the reason we're working to get to the 30% design is because that will help us with our initiative to get grant opportunities, as most of the grants that we will be going after require 30% design. There are sufficient funds in the adopted budget to cover the cost of the 3 contracts. At this time, staff recommends council authorize or approve the contracts and authorize the city manager to execute 3 contracts for the architect and engineering design. Any questions?
Okay, anyone from the public like to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for action.
I'd like to make a motion to award contract Q187-23. Let me read the whole thing.
And authorize the city manager.
And authorize the city manager
To
to
sign.
execute each contract document.
Correct.
Okay, we got a motion? Second. Got a second? Further discussion? Haley?
Councilmember Stafford?
Yes.
Councilmember Graham?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Darnes? Yes. Councilmember Capello?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tionson?
Yes.
Mayor Blair?
Yes, and the motion passes to approve contract award for Q187-0-2023/DRS. Moving on to item number 8B, discussion of city council rules and procedures. Ms. Arrington?
Yes, sir. This came up at one of our longest council meetings. Towards the end of it, February 13th. And towards the conclusion of that meeting, Councilmember Popello proposed, and everybody agreed to place this item on an upcoming agenda. The specific proposal that was put forth was a request to ask City Council to consider perhaps changing the start time of the meeting. There may be other items that people would like to consider. When you write the resolution for this, the resolution will just say you're adopting a new set of council rules. And, you know, this would be your opportunity to discuss and make any changes that you would like to have made to those rules. From my perspective, I think from your city attorney's perspective, just about everything is working really well with your rules. So you may want to limit your discussion to the start time. So I will turn it over to you all to have discussion on that. Happy to answer any questions. There's a variety of ways people set up their meetings. So.
Mr. Popello, I'm going to give you the floor since this is your forward.
Council, as stated, we had a meeting that almost made it to the next day. A few minutes short. It really is just something, my point of consideration is that we start at 6:30, which one would be better? Sometimes we have short meetings, often we have long ones. 30 minutes does make a difference. And it's not just for the start time, it's for when we are doing the work of our community and it gets late. I don't know that we are giving our best at the late hour, and making that slight modification, I think, would enhance the quality of our decision making. That is my thought.
I tend to agree with that, because I notice around 9 o'clock, everybody starts fading a little bit. So I'm all for starting a little bit early. I don't know how the rest of the
So I thought about this long and hard, and I feel like if we start at 6, we're gonna just have more time for more things to be discussed, versus as it gets later, we tend to slow down, like you said. That last meeting was a good example. I had spoke with the city manager about this and was suggesting that we have a hard stop time. And it was recommended that we don't do that because there's things on the agenda that we may have to get to that night, right? So that this could be something in the future that we would ask the chair, the mayor, maybe we could table some of that so it doesn't go till midnight, because we were all delirious that night and it was really rough, and I don't think we're making good decisions that late. But I don't think that the 6 o'clock is gonna help us any with that. And also it's hard for me to get here at 6 working during the day, so that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I live on the south side of town, so I'm concerned about the traffic coming up here, number one. And number two, the average person that's coming here, they work an 8 to 5 job. So if we start at 6, it doesn't give them much time to get home, get changed or whatever, and head over here. So that half hour could be the difference of people showing up or not showing up. So that's my thought on that.
Anyone else want to weigh in? Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, unless there's a more compelling reason, I think 6:30 is fine with me. I happened to have missed that meeting. I was overseas, but I heard it was very late, so I guess I timed it right. But I think late meetings happen sometimes. Very late meetings is an anomaly. I mean, I know the people, I'm all about inclusion, and I had set forth an initiative to try to have a daytime meeting at least once a quarter. That was kiboshed. And I think if people are going to participate, 6:30 is a great time. When they're tired of listening to us, they have they can walk out. We have to take care of our business, so we stay. But I don't see any reason to change it to 6 o'clock just because you had that up to midnight meeting. Unless there's more compelling reason, I'll stay to 6:30.
Well, it wasn't just that one meeting, it was just in general. Anyway, okay. I have another comment real quick. Yes.
The other thing is if we do the CRA, that's gonna push us back even earlier on those particular times, and that may be really hard. Just suggestion. Some water?
You have to make some sacrifices to be up here. That's for sure.
I'm sorry.
You're okay. Okay, so, anyone else have anything to say? Anyone from the public want to speak to this? Okay, bring it back to council. Oh, yes, come on up.
Hi, my name is Narada H. Williamson, and I live at 811 Gunnison Drive. And the reason I would like the meeting to stay at 6:30 is because it is easier for myself to get here as well, because I have other things I also do as well. But the main thing is, I felt that I walked out of that meeting, by the way, because it was taking so long. And I think at some point, as a whole, the council needs to decide, should they taper some things off, or should you guys just switch emails or do it in a group email? Because some of the things that was said, it wasn't as important to me as some of the other things that you guys address sometimes. And I think sometimes we need to make a decision. Does it all need to come to the council, or is there some decisions that you guys can make without the public being involved? That's just my opinion.
We cannot do that because of the sunshine law. So everything we do, any communication we have amongst each other with city business has to be done in the sunshine in a public notice meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Question, Mr. Mayor, could we have a cutoff time for some of the stuff that's on cutoff time and continue it to, like the next day or whenever?
Well, it's hard to have an exact cutoff time because like it was stated earlier, you know, if you're making business, it has to be done that night or, you know, in a reasonable amount of time. If there's any time there's a meeting when it's where everyone's getting too tired, someone can always make a motion to adjourn and we could entertain that.
That's correct. You know, and I would recommend that you I think it worked then. So, okay. So, I think the problem would be if you set a hard time, you might wind up cutting yourself off in midstream, where you're halfway through a 2-hour hearing. And I would not recommend that you do that for legal reasons and out of courtesy to the people who came to the meeting and then would have to devote a second night to it. So I really think you need to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
And not everybody's open, their next night may not be open. They may
Correct.
have some other plans for that.
One of the things, so because I'm new at this, Mr. Mayor, when people want to come up and speak, they get 3 minutes. Can that be knocked down to 2 minutes? Or 3 minutes is standard? Or?
Yeah, it is, and I think we'd get a little pushback if we cut them. People complain that 3 minutes isn't enough now, so it's.
I think also Deltona has 4 minutes, right? We have 3.
Yeah. That's Deltona.
Yeah.
It would be nice to keep everybody at 3 minutes too, if possible, because a lot of people went over and then that just adds up, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, every now and then I grant.
I know.
Time.
Yep.
In our discussions too, if everybody does their homework and they're on board with what we're doing, the questions and discussion should be minimal. You've had opportunities to speak with the city manager, the city attorney, but whomever you need to. Okay, so I'll entertain some action here.
Mayor, if I may, just one last statement. What I wanted to bring was the discussion for our council to be in the most efficient service possible. And I recognize that there are many schedules and folks need to participate. I appreciate that what I've heard is that this council 6:30 is working. It works for me. I'll be here each day at that time, if not earlier, and I just want us to be as highly functioning as possible. It gets late in the day, and that work after 9 o'clock, after 10 o'clock, after 11 o'clock is just as important as that 6 o'clock hour, that the ones before 7 and the ones during 8. So I appreciate y'all's perspective, and maybe we've made some advancement by just kind of having the conversation about being a little more aware that the meeting's not quite as efficient or productive as possible, and maybe we as independently, and then as a group, call it out. So how do we do better? Thank you.
Okay, so I don't hear a motion. So
Do we need a motion?
well,
Because they're not going to change anything.
well, it's no, we don't have a motion, but it will die if we don't have a motion.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, Council, this was just a discussion action. So unless there is a motion, we'll move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, anybody gonna make a motion? Seeing none, okay, we'll move forward. Let's move on to 8C. Consideration of participation in the Rotary Club of DeBary, Deltona, and Orange City Riverwalk Run 5K/10K. Dale Arrington, it's your baby.
Thank you. This came up at your last council meeting, again under new business at the request of Councilmember Stafford, who is our representative on the Breakfast Rotary Club. And they are having a benefit or charitable 5K, 10K race to benefit area youth. And it sort of slipped past us this year that they were looking for sponsors and participants in the race. In the agenda item, I've provided you with a couple of options. One is to do what we did last year, which was sponsor an official Orange City team in the race, in which we opened it up to council members and staff to participate in the 5K portion of the race. I believe Council Member Marks was our only council participant, but we had, surprisingly enough, a lot of staff participants in the race, and we provided our staff with an Orange City t-shirt to wear, and they went and participated in the 5K. If we did that again next year or this year, I would suggest that you open it up to 12 entry fees for council members and staff. And of course, council members would go first, and then we would try and fill the remaining spots with staff members. And that would cost approximately $800. And those funds are available in the budget. As an alternative, you could become an official sponsor, and I've attached the sponsorship qualifications to your agenda item. You could pay as little as $150 for a sponsorship, in which case you would get a mile marker stick put out for you, or a water station. Actually, a water station is $200. Only if you agree to sponsor all of them does the price drop to $150 per water station. Or you can do one of the more expensive sponsorships, which go all the way up to, I think it's $5,500 to be a title sponsor. So the choice is yours. Your contingency fund has not been tapped very much this year. There's other funds that we are projecting at this point not to be tapped as heavily as we thought under professional services for council or the city manager's office. So let me know what your druthers are. We will put it in place and process a budget amendment at our next opportunity when we're doing a major budget amendment.
Mr. Johnson?
If we have 11 people that want to participate, including Kelly Ann, I have no problem paying $800 to sponsor them. They're participating and putting ourselves out there. So.
I want to say for the city staff who participated, it was a great morale booster.
So as we stand, we have people that will participate.
Well, I haven't asked, sir, because I don't have a commitment that we would do that. But, if it's like last year, I'll do it, and I imagine others will too. Yeah,
Where's the money go? That they,
It goes to youth programs, and I want to say scholarships. I don't know specifically what to. Yes, it goes through the Rotary and then is distributed further.
It's also in conjunction with Advent Health.
Right.
Man, if you're gonna speak, it's all right, but is that all you're gonna say?
It's in conjunction with Advent Health from a Rotarian, yes.
but it's Rotarian money that's going back to the community is what I think.
That's correct.
Well, I like that idea, the team. I think Alex ought to be our team leader, actually.
No, Dale's going to be.
Okay, so, everybody good? We can do a head nod on that one, go? Sir. Everybody
Yes.
good? Team sponsor,
Team Orange City.
Can I just add that the Rotary have put in a lot of hours volunteering, putting bags together, giveaways and handouts, flags. So they have put in a lot of hours for this.
Yeah.
Part of that outfit, the Rotary. So. Very good.
Okay, let's move on to AD, acceptance of the final report of Orange City Strategic Plan, goals, strategies, and objectives. Dale Arrington.
Yes, thank you. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation on this, but I do want you to take a look at your agenda item. You know, on February 10th, we had, I thought, an excellent Saturday day-long session in which you set your goals. And, you know, Christine just achieved a major milestone on one of those as you move forward with your architectural work on your major buildings. So you also said you wanted to consider some new goals that are in addition to the long-term carry-forward goals from the prior year. Your agenda item outlines what these new goals are, and I want to say as we move forward, the prior year's objectives, we don't have a whole lot of time to work on these new goals. And I will admit that they need more discussion amongst council members to find out exactly what you had in mind. From these, you know, it is develop an area that would serve as a community gathering place, expand parking capacity, which you know we're working on with the more recent ideas that you have given us, increase recreational programs for youth. Not quite sure what you had in mind on that, but we don't have a recreation component in our Parks and Recreation Department. We do that by outsourcing. We have reviewed permitting processes to determine if changes would enhance the city's ability to manage growth. And as you know, last meeting you just adopted a moratorium to help us work on the Live Local Act, as well as evaluate what came out of this legislative session, which is not favorable to this objective. You have issue an RFP or RFQ to examine contracted event management services. And staff has discussed this a little, and we didn't know if you meant new ideas for new services, or if you wanted us to look at perhaps contracting out our current services, which would be Movie in the Park, July 4th, Halloween, Christmas, which may result in budget implications. Review homeless services or strategies, which, as you saw in your Friday communication a few weeks ago, we're kind of caught in between crosshairs between our state government and our federal government, and we're waiting on some direction for that. Increase staffing to provide additional services. Woohoo, I'm all in favor of that. And conduct a charter review. So I think most all of these items need to be discussed either during your budget presentations or even next year. I mentioned that in terms of the charter review. Now is no time to start a charter review when you've got 6 seats up for election, and the process in itself will take over a year to go through. It would be brought forth potentially to an entirely different council than you've got sitting here today. So my recommendation is on these new objectives that you allow staff to continue on the work that we're making good headway on your prior years, and that you consider providing more direction on this either during your budget presentations, which will be starting up fairly soon and will be taking up a great deal of your time, or next year after the election results are in.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to make a recommendation that we do the charter review and the RFP, RFQ process after the elections, just because they take a very long time, like she said. And I think it's only fair that whoever's sitting up here make those decisions. That's just my.
Does everyone else agree?
So really just looking for guidance on these items, and the others we can discuss during budget, if that's amenable. And with that, you're in order to accept the final report as it has been presented, because it is a 3-year deal.
Okay.
So when we had that meeting, all that still applies with regard to our priorities. We're
Ye-
just gonna carry it after the elections.
Yes. So those were just the new ones. Remember, you had carried forward a host of 30 other priorities. I just wanted directions on starting these new ones up.
Okay, how about some action?
You need to ask the public again? You need to ask the public?
Does anyone from the public want to speak to this?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the final report. Does not have any direct financial impact on the city. That's what it says. That's what it says.
I skipped a whole section of your agenda item. You don't. Just make a motion to accept the final report.
Speed up the meeting.
So moved.
Great job.
So moved.
Okay, so we got a motion. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion passes to accept the final report, of Orange City Strategic Plan, goals, strategies, and objectives. Move to item number 9, report, city manager's report.
I have nothing to report, sir.
Any questions for the city manager? Seeing none, we'll move on to the city clerk's report.
I have a 2024
election update. Mr. Bill O'Connor has withdrawn from the election officially. I have had a number of individuals come in to file to run for the 2024 election, so I'm going to announce them by the seat that they're running for. So for mayor, currently I do have, my current candidate, Kelly Marks, who filed in 2023. I have added a candidate, Lori Scotton, that is also running for mayor. For District 1, Harold Grimm has filed. For District 2, I have a Christian Oyerbride. And for the at-large, not the mayor at-large, just the regular at-large, I have Dana Knight. The last one, Dana Knight. So that is the update that I have to provide. Just a reminder that we are hosting the Volusia League of Cities dinner on Thursday, so everybody be prepared. And that's all I have.
Okay, now let's move on to the city attorney's report.
Just a couple updates, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good news first. What didn't happen in Tallahassee, and that is just
There were a series of bills that were taken to raise local government sovereign immunity tax. Both of those failed. I think I mentioned that in a prior meeting. And that was a little scary for all of us. Not that. But what did pass was, let's see, House Bill 1365. And I know that our office has been working with the police department, the police chief, and this has to do with homelessness. You've probably been reading about it in the newspaper. And it's not really that unlike, excuse me, the agenda item we talked about, it's not with regard to vacancy, panhandling, homeless. But this is a law signed by the governor, and as of October 1st, it will cause cities to be required to prevent people from sleeping on public property, including public buildings and public rights-of-way, public parks, which obviously is designated towards the homeless. And then it goes, the next step is, in that event, and there are not sufficient beds or spaces on the shelter, and any local government that is doing what it has to do under this new law will designate certain property for sleeping or camping. Sites have to meet certain standards that are set by the Florida Department of Children and Families. Such an
discretionary, can only be used for 1 year. And it also gives legal business owners to file civil lawsuits against local governments that allow sleeping and camping on public property. I can tell you that I think it's almost a sure thing that this will be subject to a challenge and a lawsuit. It's also going to be impacted by a United States Supreme Court case pending, dealing with what is the current status of the law, and that is that under the 8th and the 4th Amendment of the United States Constitution, the federal courts have held that being homeless is not a crime, and therefore you cannot arrest people just because they're homeless, and you can't force them off the streets unless you have a suitable shelter for them to go to. So local governments, including Lincoln City, Orange City, we're in a bit of a waiting period. And I know that your city manager and police chief and I will be watching this very carefully. There's already some discussions that are being held in other local governments about how they're going to try to comply. It obviously is another one of these unfunded mandates, and it could be a very expensive unfunded mandate, much less where you're going to create this place. It's not going to be real popular. So we'll be working to try to not be reactive, to be as proactive as possible. Given that we really don't know what's going to happen between now and October, we should be able to see what a lot of other cities are, but everything's going to be different. I mean, we don't have, thank goodness, the homeless situation that some of the bigger cities in the state of Florida have, and their solutions are going to be much different than what we may have to do. But I did want you to be aware of it. It passed in the governor's office, so it's a big deal.
A very big deal, and Wayne and I are already looking on this to see what is available perhaps to us on a contractual basis in other jurisdictions. I'm really not keen on trying to establish a campground that meets all of their minimum standards.
Which are substantial, by the way.
Yes.
Mental counseling, food, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's
put us in a whole new
yeah,
realm.
it would be very difficult.
So our agreement with the bridge doesn't play into this?
It does, but you need to know that the bridge is sometimes at capacity, and then we can't take it. Right now, last time we checked, we couldn't take anyone to the bridge. So I've asked Wayne to check with First Step, but I know sometimes First Step is at capacity. So, on the shelters that we have here in Orange City or here in Volusia County, they're all running at capacity. It's one of those items where counties may have additional authority to set up the campgrounds from what I've read, and the ability to move them from place to place. So, you look at what we've got available in terms of public lands, it's very limited. So it may be that we're asking Uncle Volusia County to help a whole lot of cities with coming up with a solution to this.
So that might be a Florida League of Cities advocacy thing, right? To
It may
pull together.
be, or a Volusia League of Cities.
Oh, Volusia, I mean, right.
So, I think we're past the Florida League.
Yeah.
Have to really look local for it, so.
I do have an update on the First Step Shelter.
Oh, thank you.
At our police chief's meeting on Friday, the director of First Step Shelter actually gave a presentation. It is not a shelter. It is a program, and the cities have to belong to it. It started out 4 years ago with just the East Side cities. It's a financial impact that you have to be involved in it to even bring someone to that program. But it is a program to get people back on their feet, into their own housing. They have to save 50% of whatever job they have through an account that they create. I can tell you we've got about 10 homeless people that we regularly deal with. They are not want to be involved in that type of program if we were to be a partner with First Step Shelter. Outside of the First Step Shelter, they have what they call a safe zone that is for, again, communities that are involved and make that financial contribution there. 24 beds for the entire county. are there. And that's the only part of that being a shelter. So First Step is mainly a program to get families and even elderly and care to get people to, back on their feet and into their own housing and employment and the like. So we currently belong to the Bridge. We don't belong to First Step, but I don't believe it would help the situation that we have outside of what Mr. Reichman's talking about with the changes.
I read through that mandate, and isn't it true? And I mean, you can confirm this. But if they say that all the shelters are full and they're in a public place and they're camping there, we cannot do anything. Is that correct? We can't.
Law says we have to do something, and what that something is to have a place for them to be put, which we
decide to camp at a particular public venue that we have or a public place that we own. We can't molest them and take them or force them to move, can we?
Yes.
We can.
Yes, that's what this law says. That if they are on public property and they meet these guidelines, then starting October 1, we have to have set up some place or have some place to put them once we pick them up and remove them from public property, like a public park.
What I'm saying is that the place is full and there's no place to take them. You cannot do anything else. You leave them where they're at.
Well, that's what, you're right, that's what's always happened. But under this law, that's not going to be satisfactory. And after notice, as I mentioned earlier, one of the provisions of this law is that a private citizen can sue the local government and get attorney's fees and costs if you do not have, you're not in compliance with this new state law.
So we're looking at in the future building a facility for them. Is that what you're saying?
That's basically yes. Yeah. Remember I said unfunded mandate? Now, I will tell you, and I don't mean to make light of it, but there was a local government official in South Florida that said that we're just going to rent buses and we're going to send them to Tallahassee. Now that's that was said in jest, but I mean that's the level of frustration that is already occurring in local governments throughout the state of Florida, because there has been that I've been able to determine, there's been no analysis of what the cost of this is going to be placed in local governments, cities, and counties, but it's going to be hundreds of millions.
Well, nobody wants it in their backyard either.
That's again
That's
what
a
I said
problem.
earlier. If
Yeah.
you can find a place.
Mayor? Yes, sir. Just for understanding, and I believe I heard, and of course, this is something that is developing a strategy to deal with this, but if we do not, community-wide, Volusia County, Orange City, have a facility to put these, then they would be, an alternative is to put them in jail.
Depending upon what, and again, currently that's unconstitutional under the federal courts.
Right, but then they're.
Are you able to hold down your mic just a little bit?
Are they not implying that that is one of the alternatives? I recognize your point.
My understanding is that we are caught between a rock and a hard place, because if we do that, then the ACLU is going to sue us for putting them in jail, because homeless is not a crime.
Yes.
If you arrest someone just because they're homeless, they get no place to go, we're open for a lawsuit.
Well, the other thing is DeLand put that thing in place where they're kind of moving them this way now, if you know what I mean. They're starting to come this way. I don't know if anybody noticed that. So we're getting more coming this way.
I didn't bring this up, folks, to say that we're going to solve this problem tonight. Homelessness is a problem that is everywhere. It's everyone's problem, and because of this new law, it's going to force local governments to band together potentially, as your city manager indicated, or get involved in some challenges to this law, find some resources countywide to deal with this. But it's going to cost somebody a lot of money unless this law gets overturned. And the reason I brought it up tonight is because I didn't want there to be a surprise in September, when this thing kicks in October 1. Okay. That's it.
Anything else?
That's it.
Right.
It's all the good news I can think of.
All right. No other good news?
No more good news.
All right. No questions for the attorney? Okay, new business?
Parks to the agenda, in the future agenda, to discuss it.
All those in favor? Yes? Yes, yes, yes? Yep, especially if, yeah.
Yes, if we're gonna do that, just look into how we're able to enforce. Just wanna make sure that we take that.
I know they requested the next meeting, but I think probably it'll be in May, only because of the deadlines that are, being really cramped in April as we prepare for hurricane season.
Okay, any other new business? Seeing none, we will next, we've done that. Any comments tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one item that I would like to raise. Revisit. That's the request that I made last meeting to attend a luncheon held at Daytona State College. The conference was for Women's History Luncheon. I did not explain my reasons for wanting to attend the luncheon very well, and then before you know it, other council members were explaining how they did not see the benefit, how they did not see how it benefit the city of Orange City. One of the things, the reason why I asked this, okay, is the honoree of this particular luncheon is Gwen Asma Edwards. She is a longtime historic and Orange City family that grew up in the community, attended many of our Orange City events, and put a good word in for us whenever she could. She carries some prestige with her, and she has been a prominent person in local and state government for some time. I thought it would be important for Orange City to demonstrate their honor to her by attending this event, and that is why I wanted to attend on behalf of the council. I also thought it would be an opportunity for me to meet and further develop acquaintance and friendships with women from all over Volusia County who works in organizations that could help Orange City. Networking with others and building helpful relationships with government, businesses, and organizations is one of the things we at Orange City, as council members, always have done. I am not asking that you pay for this. I already bought my ticket. But I did want you to know that I didn't think that my request was futile, that I sincerely thought and still do think that my attendance will be of benefits to the city of Orange City and its residents. I just wanted to clear this up so that you better understood my reason for asking. And it's one thing that I'm a very compassionate person. History here, right here in Orange City, a lot of people don't know the history. So her mother was a very prominent person here. I mean, she was raised here right down the street from where I am. So her name was Gwendolyn Frazier. She has done a lot. Even when I go to her and ask her for things for Orange City, it's all in the back, but she does what she could to make sure that we get what we're looking for. Right. So, and whether or not people believe it, I don't know what happened to our society. We are our brother's keepers, and our brother's keepers are with us. So we have to look out for each other. We can't stand alone in anything. We have to unite and be one. So this is why I did that. I wasn't just trying to do that so Orange City will pay for me to go somewhere. No, I didn't want that. I wanted to let her know we support her as well. She was raised here all these years. It was Gwendolyn Frazier. And most of you probably don't know the Frazier family here in Orange City. But they have done a lot. We have done a lot.
How much was the?
It wasn't but $50, but I'm okay with that.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm going to pass the gavel here. I want to make a motion that we reimburse Ms. Stafford for her ticket.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? There you go. All right.
You like doing that, don't you?
Okay, any other comments or,
Real quick, I can-
yep, real quick.
Thank you, no pressure. I just want to let everybody know that I'm part of the opioid abatement commission, I guess. So, just a little background. The state of Florida put together a lawsuit to the opioid companies because of the impact it had with them pushing the stuff to, I guess, the people who thought they needed it, but didn't foresee the fact that it was very addictive and that we would now have problems with opioids. I've had personal exposure to this as a prior law enforcement. Also, if we're honest to ourselves, you probably know somebody, family, friends that aren't impacted by opioids. So I'm pretty passionate about trying to get some of that money locally here, which is not going to be, well, we have gotten initially $7 million. I think for the next few years, we're going to get close to 40 million because of reporting items that we took the position that we're going to work with Volusia County to try to get that money back here. Tomorrow, I've got a TPO meeting, Transportation Planning Committee meeting, and then I'm going to meet with a lady that has a program in Ormond Beach. That my vision to how we're able to take some of this, little bit of this money, we don't have a finite amount. I think they're only releasing about $4 million out of the initial $7 million. Is that my vision is to maybe have a shared office with a shared space where we can meet with someone who's having opioid issues and have an outreach meeting with them, maybe twice a week, and maybe once in a weekend, once a month, if we have clients to that effect. So I'm gonna meet with her tomorrow. If any of you guys have any ideas of how to spend this little bit of money that we're probably able to get, let me know.
So what's our portion of that?
Well, I don't even know. So $4 million for the whole Volusia County initially.
Is it?
And we're gonna have to pay all the paid staff that they put together through this commission first and their benefits, and then it goes out to us. I don't know exactly how much we're getting. Dale,
So when we first did the calculations on this, our amount was for Orange City with the population of 13,000 out of Volusia County, with this huge population, you can see that, 4 million divided by 500,000 times 13 is not very much money. It wasn't even enough to really do anything with unless you work with everybody all together. And I think that's what Vice Mayor Timpson is trying to explain, is that we're pulling our resources to establish programming here in West Volusia, maybe even here in Orange City, that will be part of a larger whole.
that's it.
Thank you. All right, any other comments tonight?
May I? Mayor,
Yes.
thank you. 8 individuals came up from the community and spoke. Thank you. It is quite important to participate, to have a voice in the process, and if that isn't being done, then we are lesser for it. I heard a variety of points that were made. Most of them were advocacy for quality of life. This is where we choose to live. This is where we choose to have our businesses. This is the time we have. And I think we all want to prosper. So thank you for participating. And thank you all for serving in the community. Council, staff, especially staff. Those presentations, the attention to detail, thank you. Well done.
I just want to make a little side note. I understand that Nancy Scanlon passed away over the last couple of weeks. And if you remember, Nancy used to sit right in that back row over there. She lived over on South Oak. And I want to say she passed the week before last. So, speaking of people that participate in their community, I've been doing this a long time. She was sitting there almost every single night. So, we appreciate people that come out and support their community and give us their input. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion, got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those